how do we care for the land, really care for the land as a way to prepare for the extremes, such as fires, droughts, and more? In 2018, my family and I moved to Altadena into a home nestled at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains. After learning what it meant to live in a high fire risk zone, I began to imagine, what would it look like if fire were to come towards us from those mountains? What kind of landscape might prevent the loss of our home? So we began to landscape by harvesting water. We built mounds of strategically and thoughtfully layered logs, mulch, soil, and other compostable discards. We composted everything. Nothing left the site. We planted natives and fire-adapted species. We installed roof sprinklers. We even pre-burned sections of our fencing for fire hardening. In other words, we landscaped by being in a relationship with the land. Every plant that was pruned was returned to the soil in an effort, rather than being sent away in the green waste bin. We mulched with what the garden provided, and as a result of that mulch, over time the earth became more absorbent, alive, holding water like a sponge during our rainy season. The year before the fire, we only watered 6 times. This garden wasn't drought tolerant. This was a garden that was memory rich. It was a garden that knew what to do. And then came the fire. On January 7th, we saw the unmistakable glow on the mountain. The winds were powerful. We activated the irrigation and the roof sprinklers, and we soaked everything. Neighbors evacuated. We stayed, watching, listening, and trusting the systems we had co-created. At 3 a.m., the fire crested, so we made the call. We grabbed the kid, the dog, the go box, some clothes, and we headed to Denny's. I will never forget that when we walked outside, a massive gust of wind knocked the flame off of the mountain. All I could see was a glowing red ridge and an army of embers flying towards us like flaming arrows. Around noon the next day, we returned. The house was still standing, but had just caught fire. The embers had slipped through the open vents, and our neighbor's fence was burning and transferred fire to our fence and then made it to our house. We hauled water from the neighbor's pool with buckets in an attempt to put out the fire, but the gas main had ignited and was shooting flames underneath the house. It was time to let go. What I saw needed to be filmed and documented. Our mulchy native garden was not burning. Singed, yes, but it held. I filmed the house going up in flames and watched our 85-year-old tree, the one the insurance company deemed a hazard, go up in flames. The house caught the tree on fire, not the other way around. Our home burned, but the fire stopped at our property on our block. The neighbors' homes to the south and west of us are still standing today. We didn't fireproof. We related to the land, and it made all the difference. This is what we returned to a week later. Yes, the house is gone, but the garden persists. This isn't a story of devastation. This is a story of evidence. Evidence that resilience is not just possible, it's already here. That resilience is born from relationship. For decades, our culture has taught us to defend against nature, to fear fire, to strip vegetation, to treat the living world as a threat. The fire showed us something else. When we embrace living systems instead of erasing them, when we restore the connections between soil, water, and plants, we create conditions that resist disaster, that help slow the fire, that hold water, that nurture life. Zone Zero defensible space policies suggest that the areas around our homes be stripped, sterilized, and cleared of anything deemed flammable. But here's the truth. The home itself is flammable. Living healthy plants such as trees and shrubs are much less flammable, and they can protect our homes. You can tell I'm a little bit passionate about this. I mean, we live in a culture that treats the land as something to manage or control. Fire is cast as an enemy. Plants are labeled as fuel. Invasive species are condemned while the real sources of vulnerability go unaddressed. Disconnection from nature, overdevelopment, extraction, dare I say poor design? Rather than decorate our landscapes with plants, which seems to be the status quo of design, we could be forging powerful bonds with the very plants and systems that create oxygen, rain, food, cool cities. True resilience isn't about fireproofing. It's not about building walls between ourselves and the land. It's about remembering how to live with the land. Our garden resisted not because it was just a collection of plants, it was a living system. Our garden captured rainfall and guided it into the soil. It built carbon and stored it underground. It created shade and moisture. It held life together in the middle of a fire. The very same principles that kept our garden alive, the very same principles that kept our garden alive in the flames are the ones that can transform our communities, our neighborhoods, our climate. And this is what landscaping in relationship to nature looks like. Yeah, I lost my home. Yes, my family had to start over, but the garden still stands, and it stands with evidence. Evidence that we already hold the keys to resilience right here, in our reach, in our hands, in our hearts, and in the soil beneath our feet. What if all vulnerable communities were reimagined this way? Imagine if every street, front yard, or shared open space was interconnected with healthy living soil that was harvesting water to support life. Imagine if our communities focused on the abundance of life below ground, which in return supports the abundance of life above ground, a regenerative feedback loop. Imagine if fire wasn't only something we feared, but also something we prepared for by working with the land rather than against it. We could transform not only our vulnerability, but our vitality. None of this is new. Some call it permaculture, some call it regenerative. I call it whole system design. Tomato, tomato. There are many ways to show that we care. Being in relationship with the land honors the cultures around the world that have practiced this for eons. So why do humans continue to need these reminders? Why do we keep forgetting this? We usually hear about this in the context of agriculture or large-scale restoration, but what if it began in a parkway, or our medians, or our front yards, or our shared open spaces? What if these spaces became our living classrooms, small but powerful ecosystems that bring us back into relationship with the forces that sustain us? Because when everyday landscapes become places of learning, healing, and reconnection, resilience stops being an idea and it becomes a way of life. This is not just about gardens. This is about remembering who we are. It's about remembering, it's about belonging to the places we call home. The fire taught us this. Resilience is not built on fear, it is born from relationship. We are not separate from Mother Earth. We are not her enemy and she is not ours. We are her and she is us. All of us, Mother Nature and humankind together, we are all innocent and responsible. And when we live that truth, when we design, build, and care with relationship in mind, we don't just survive the fire, we bloom from it. We lost our homes. Our lives were terribly disrupted. And yet we carry this fire with us, this ember, this message, this reminder that the answer to all of our problems lives in relationship. It lives in community. It lives in love. And it lives in the very mulch that builds healthy, living, water-holding soil. Yes, friends, you heard that correctly. The answer has always been love and mulch.